bring this video to you because I'm just getting back from a business trip. And I'll explain a little bit more about this business trip. So basically, I have like a part-time job, and they were kind of wanting to push me more and more into full-time. And I'm not going to take that option. I'm still very much a part-time worker. But I did want some money, for some things that are coming up. And I have a friend. And this is an A to E relationship, ladies, okay? Because this friend is a healthcare staffing recruiter. A good person to know. But I also know that she was a nurse as well, okay? I knew her from undergrad. But she would, use her connections and use her relationship with us to kind of like staff positions, but the positions that were more likely to help her, right, advance in her career. I'll give you an example. When I was an instructor, I had a student who was very interested in like doing pediatric care, okay? And I, passed the number on to her. And she recruits this young woman, young, idealistic, early 20s, nurse to do like pediatric care. Well, really she was working like in like the state system that investigated like child abuse cases and things like that, like worked with children who had like severe behavioral problems, kids in the foster care system, which is just not a place where you put somebody like young and idealistic. Another time she did this to a soldier that I was in a unit with, combat medic, wanted to get into civilian medicine, just putting him in like this nursing home where he was constantly having like to lift heavy patients and not really like the trauma hospital setting that he really wanted to be in and really wanted to thrive in. She put him into this because those were things that were more lucrative for her, right? Those were contracts that if she fulfilled them, there was an incentive for her. And not necessarily, she wasn't thinking about the candidate. And she's done this to also a couple of people in our circle. So again, that would be an A to E relationship where I only deal with her to the extent that I need to deal with her. Okay, so it'll be friendly, we'll go to lunch, we'll call, we'll text. But if I want to help refer a colleague, a student, someone I'm hoping to mentor, if I want to refer, I'm very specific, and I encourage them to be very specific in what their wants and needs are. I have an LVN who wants to relocate to Dallas to a hospital system who is willing to pay her X amount of dollars, give her a retention bonus and relocation pay. Like, you know what I mean? I would have to be very specific. I have a combat medic who wants to go to a trauma hospital that offers tuition reimbursement in addition to, like stability, so when he graduates he'll definitely have a job in a major trauma hospital. You know what I mean? So I would have to be very specific when I ask her for things because it's a good person to know. So I did tell her specifically what I was looking for, and she found me a short-term assignment in a specialty hospital in San Antonio where I have connections. I've worked before and I have friends, and I've been stationed here before multiple times. My reserve unit was at San Antonio, so I have like a lot of connections here. And it was a cushy, beautiful, well-paying job in a very prestigious specialty type of environment where I wasn't very overextended. I wasn't very, it was demanding, but not horribly demanding because it was so like specialized what my tasking was, and I had a really good balance. So it was really a nice assignment. It was a really great pay. I cannot complain about the compensation at all. It's definitely something that I would do again. I like a short-term contract in this city that compensates me well to do like certain specialized taskings. And with that, I just got a chance to talk to a lot of young nurses, young nurse practitioners, other healthcare workers who were transitioning from military to civilian medicine. And it was just such a good experience for me. And it made me realize something, that Black women, we really are making an impact in healthcare, but what we need to do is connect a little more, right? Is connect a little more, because I'm finding that a lot of young nurses, a lot of young healthcare professionals are definitely talking and collaborating on a level that we're not necessarily doing. Let me give you an example. This is San Antonio, huge Hispanic population, and the Dreamers Act is in full effect. It's Texas, okay? A lot of these janitors, housekeepers will sit in the break rooms and talk and socialize at the nurses station, in the break rooms, and really like listen to the conversations that some of the other healthcare workers are having, so that they know how to navigate and educate their children, knowing that some of the Dreamers stuff is available to their kids, right? So they're listening to us talk, but a lot of times the Black women, we're in the break rooms or in the department area on our phones, not talking to anybody, because we're trying to like mind our business and not get in trouble at work. And we're not having the conversations with some of the other people who are in advanced or accelerated master's degree programs, or LVN to RN programs, or accelerated BSN, Bachelor of Nursing programs, or things that will, or other allied health careers that are up and coming, like with sonography, ultrasound, cardiac cath lab, I mean, all of these other things that are kind of up and coming in the other areas of allied health. We're not having these conversations and asking people about where they went to school and what their experience is like and what their job is like or what their work history is, and talking to some of these other pharmacists who had other backgrounds in healthcare, who maybe didn't necessarily take the traditional route. Some of these other non-traditional students, there's a lot of doctors, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, and pharmacists who took a very non-traditional route to get where they are. And we're not in these conversations as much. Now, I always make it a point to at least bring coffee creamer and donuts 1 or 2 times, just to make sure I'm talking to people and socializing and getting to know people, because I definitely want to be a social lubricant. Food is the greatest social lubricant there is, to make sure that I'm always talking to people, because you wouldn't believe how many people want to connect and tell you their story and want you to be successful too. It's not always this petty competitive environment. I'm not saying that those things don't exist, because they do, but I am also saying that there are a lot of people who are willing to tell you their story on how they succeed. A lot of incredible businessmen, like I've suggested, a lot of in the things I've suggested in my reading list, are willing to share their secrets. And one of the things that they do is they talk about their mistakes. And I feel as if, as Black women, we are so crucified for making mistakes that we don't see mistakes as learning opportunities. We sometimes have shame. We sometimes don't want to talk about it. We sometimes are not very forthcoming with information because we know we made a mistake. And I'm going to give you an example. Some of these nurses aides, CNAs, and who went to these like for-profit schools, right? That they like, I'm a certified medication aide, or I'm a blah, 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 or these made up diplomas and things where basically they're the same CNA as somebody who, knew somebody who knew somebody and got the same job and the same pay, but now here they are in debt. And they're not any more different or special than anyone else, and none of the credits that they've accrued or the debt that they've accumulated transfers to anywhere, because these are like non-accredited institutions, and these are for-profit non-accredited institutions, right? And they're really ashamed to talk about that when they should be talking about it to let other people know, like, hey, maybe avoid this school, especially before a lot of these schools got kind of cracked down on and closed, and they're kind of ashamed to admit that they went to these schools and didn't really end up getting anything out of it. And I really would have loved for them to tell that story, so that some of these other young women would know not to make that mistake. Especially, and also too, that's nothing to be ashamed of, I don't think. It's something you didn't know. A lot of times when we are college students, we're first generation in our family. I know that I'm very blessed to come from a line of educated people, 3-4 generations of educated black people, but that's not the case for most black people. And to be able to talk about these things, to be able to talk about how to vet the right institution, to be able to talk about job placement, to be able to talk about things is something that we really need to do. So we really have to let go of the shame in so many aspects of our lives of where we may have not made the right mistake. Because right now, especially, we're being very persecuted for getting degrees. While the majority culture, they see the impending mating crisis as a problem for men, right? Where on our side, especially if you're on this side of the algorithm, being an educated woman is a downside, right? So it's so surprising when you talk to other people how many of these respiratory therapists that I'm seeing and clinical lab techs are putting their wives, girlfriends, daughters, nieces through nursing school. So not only are they getting a lucrative job, not only are they connected to the healthcare system through their family member, but they're also not coming in, not accumulating as much debt. How many military people, even though San Antonio isn't their final destination, are kind of using some of the benefits that they get as veterans to break their way into civilian healthcare, also to break their way into real estate. Because San Antonio is still a relatively affordable city with a great opportunity for rental income. My first home was in San Antonio. My first home was like $88,000 in San Antonio over 20 years ago. So yeah, it just, these stories that other people are sharing that we're not sharing with each other because we're so afraid to talk about our mistakes. We're so afraid to not look at those learning experiences and those setbacks as opportunities to do something better for the next generation. So really not talking about the classes that we've failed or the setbacks we've had, because I know I've failed classes and I've had to retake classes and come out of pocket for things that I didn't know that the military could have paid for. I've definitely had those experiences, but I'm very willing to share that because I don't have any shame. I don't have any shame to admit that, yes, I had to get academic support, especially for classes like chemistry and for some of the advanced math that pharmacology needed from me as I moved forward. And I always make it a point to share that because not only did that benefit me academically, it benefited me professionally because a lot of those TAs and professors were people who served as references for me when I needed to get another job or referral. And they also were advocates for me when I needed assistance in other areas navigating through my career. So again, it ended up having a twofold effect. And that's what I'm trying to say, to not be so ashamed of our mistakes, to not be so ashamed to even the house I owned here in San Antonio, it definitely was new construction. It was great, but I didn't foresee the plans that the city had for that area because I really wasn't paying attention to the newspapers or zoning laws or things like that to realize that, yeah, I still did make money. I did. That maybe I wanted to purchase it someplace differently or look into other subdivisions or look into maybe even existing construction and do a little work. Could have increased my profit margin. Just being able to talk about these types of things can only benefit us. And also too, just more listening than talking. Just more listening to find out where are these other young single nurses going to happy hour and going out to socialize? Because they're seeming to meet a way better caliber of men than a lot of the black women who are out here. What are they using? Where are they going? What are they doing when they're in school and working part-time? And What are they doing with their money? Like, those conversations might just be nice to just listen to. And even just to relate to people on just a social level. Um, One of the things that was very interesting is one of the younger allied health professionals was listening to Ed Sheeran. She's like a really big Ed Sheeran fan, and she was talking about, how much she likes his music and how she'd like to see him in concert if he starts to tour again or something along those lines. And somehow his wife got mentioned. Ed Sheeran's wife was mentioned. And I knew he got married when that song Perfect came out. And I talked about it like, oh yeah, I know he got married or whatever. And I knew that she was a Duke alum. And I know Duke was in the news recently with the NCAA tournament, men's tournament for basketball. She was an athlete at Duke. She was an NCAA Division I athlete at Duke, and she actually has a master's degree in finance. And she does not look all that exceptional. She doesn't look all that exceptional. She looks average, like an average woman who just takes care of herself, who has a wealthy husband, obviously, and I think about it, like just Ed Sheeran alone, what he's probably made writing songs for One Direction probably could set him up for life. We're not even talking about his career, but the songs that he's written for like Ellie Goulding and One Direction probably could set him up for life. And knowing that these songs are out there being played and he's written them, he has probably earned more than the artist performing him, right? And knowing that he's with someone in finance, they're probably very well invested. I think they both did a good job of marrying well. And it just is such an example of how other people just have such different priorities. And when you start talking to other people, you're going to start to realize that. So this is just really even more encouragement to put yourself out there. Because believe it or not, your mistakes and setbacks are not something that, I'm not going to say that people don't judge people by their mistakes or people don't judge people by their past, but a lot of people are not trying to crucify you. Because a lot of people have made mistakes. A lot of people are on a self-improvement journey. A lot of people are on a wellness journey. Trust me, Black women are not the only people who have gained weight during the quarantine. So you're not going to be the only one who is in class, who is taking Overeaters Anonymous support group, or who is contemplating a weight loss surgery, or who, needs a trainer or a nutritionist. You're not the only one. You're not the only one. Many people are on this journey with you, so be very open and willing to share it. If you are just in a idea about opening a business or making a career transition, understand that there are many people during this great resignation who have done this too, and who would love to hear your story, and who could benefit from what it is you've learned and the mistakes that you've made along the way, and you can benefit from what they've learned, the mistakes that they've learned along the way, as they chart this new found road to business. Like I just know one woman who was I think she was a supervisor for respiratory therapy. Yeah. She paints, and she got back into painting again. So even though she's not independent of her job, but listening to other people about how to market her artwork really helped her to be able to, number one, resurrect the talent that she had long forgotten, in the words of Jordan Peterson, right? But to make some extra money, and to not necessarily, and during these times, a lot of us healthcare workers are burnt out, talking to other people about gardening, I've just had so many great conversations with people over the course of this short assignment. It was like 3 weekends in a row, not too far from my home, and lucrative and well worth it. And I just really want to encourage you, Black women, that so many people are on the level up journey you're on. So I encourage you to reach out, and even if you make a mistake, don't think of it as such a major setback. Like, I'll give you an example. The sports arena, right? We know baseball's coming up. Opening day is the 9th. I'm probably not going to be on the YouTube streets too much because, you know, I got tickets and I got plans. So just as let's just say you go out and you go to a sports bar and it's a total miss. It's a total miss. So you go out to the sports bar and it's a total bust. There's not any good looking guys there. But you just realize that, hey, I might have missed the mark here. But guess what? I now know that this bar is off the list. So let me at least, you know, talk to the bartender and be like, hey, what are the other sports bars that are hopping? What are some of the nights that this bar is hopping? Is this more of a football crowd, a baseball crowd, a blah, 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 blah? Because trust me, bartenders work at more than one place or have worked at more than one place. And they can let you know, like, where the single scene is, where the up and coming bars are, if you're not familiar with the areas that you're trying to cast your net in. So even if it's a bust, at least you found out it was a bust opening day and not the World Series and not, you know, the Super Bowl or not a key matchup. You found out it was a bust today. So that next day you can do better. Next key matchup, next Super Bowl, next World Series, you can be out there at the right place. So again, ladies, know that those mistakes and those setbacks are gonna happen. And mistakes only can make you better, but not living your life, you know, and be out now. Stop waiting until you're to be at the perfect weight and the perfect fineness and the perfect stage of your level up, because so many people are out here imperfect and they're still doing it. You know, I look at Ed Sheeran's wife, you know, they knew each other from high school. So how many mistakes you think that relationship went through? On again, off again, you know, he's in one country, you're in another, blah, 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 but still finding a way to like reconnect after they learn, after they grew, after they developed themselves as people, and then being able to reconnect again as adults. And like I said, that's why it's important to kind of resurrect old friendships and talk and resurrect, you know, get on social media, clean up your social media, and then use it to kind of resurrect old connections that might benefit you, even if they're only A to E, like my relationship with this particular healthcare recruiter, right? I only deal with her to a certain extent. I deal with her to where it's beneficial to me and on a very specific term. I don't just throw the whole relationship away because of some immature things that she's done in the past. I'm just careful with how I deal with her. And I'm going to encourage you ladies to do the same. Be careful in how you deal with people, but still don't use it as an excuse to not deal with people. This is going to be a journey. Some of the weight loss things you're doing now might not work 7 or 8 months from now, and you have to change it up. Some of the therapists that you know, are working with may work great for this area of your life, but then might not work next for the next level of your level up. Some of the guys that you might see or date might be great for introducing you to certain parts of the restaurant and entertainment district, and that's all they're good for. You know, some of the guys are just really good for generating some really good conversational skills. And I'm just letting you know that these mistakes and these setbacks are really, really going to help you develop as a person for the life that you want. And I'm telling you to not be imprisoned or feel crucified by your mistakes, because not everybody views it the same way. Not everybody thinks that you need to be leveling up in a tiny little corner in your room in the dark and moving in silence. In a way, yes, but in a way too, it might just be an opportunity for you to just get to know a coworker better, or for you to try. I mean, even when I think about some of these young college students who, you know, are so focused on getting perfect grades, when really it might just be about who you know and not just necessarily what you know. I'll give you an example. Like, you go and do an internship. It's the Great Resignation. Internships are available now, okay? You realize it doesn't work out for you. You're still a college student. You can say like, hey, next semester I'll be moving on to another internship, or focusing on my schoolwork or clinicals or whatever, externships, whatever. But thank you for this experience, and keep in contact in case you need them for a reference. You know, because you're a college student, everybody kind of expects for you to leave the internship for the next best thing. And if you find out and if it's not for you, that's great. At least you found that out as a college intern, and you didn't find that out when you're knee deep in debt from student loans or getting furniture for your first apartment or financing your first car. You know that now. So that's why I kind of encourage you to kind of get out there now. Like, right now is the time where a lot of people are starting to apply for summer jobs and internships. So definitely put yourself out there. And if it works out and you develop a career out of it, fantastic. But if you don't, at least you've learned and you've walked away with something. You've walked away better than when you started. So please stop looking at your mistakes, at your setbacks, at things you don't know as something that's a handicap, because it's not. It's not. It's an asset. It's an asset, and please stop looking at your mistakes as something, or your level up journey as something that other people are not going through too. So many people are about self-improvement, and so many people want to develop a network of people that are about the same thing. Don't be so insular. It might help to just even grease the wheels a little bit by being kind at work, or, start to reconnect with some old friends and old colleagues and old classmates to just see how they're doing, because people really do appreciate, especially in these times when people have been so isolated, a friendly hello or a reminder. And also too, don't be afraid to keep in contact with some of those very ambitious male students. We know that the college sweetheart story is very different for everyone. We talk about Ed Sheeran and his wife knowing each other since high school, keeping in contact, keeping in touch, and to the point where when they are ready to settle down, you're still there. You're still kind of in the, he's on your roster, you're on his. You want to make sure that you are still keeping in contact with it, because believe it or not, this has been very well documented. Men's social circle decreased by half when they turn 23, and then steadily declines after that. And women, that's not always necessarily the case. So my encouragement is to really still keep in contact with those ambitious men who are maybe going into the more competitive programs, where they might not be focused on a relationship right now, but eventually you may want to keep yourself kind of in the running by just staying in contact, keeping in contact with social media, getting together casually with groups when you both are in town, things like that. So keeping in touch through alumni events through your school, even if you didn't graduate, right? Because alumni events, even when you didn't graduate, you never know what kind of incentives they're offering. I've just found out that about listening to a conversation, right? When people didn't graduate, some of these institutions are like, hey, you want to come back and finish? We offer this and this and this and this and this. Wow, that was a really fascinating story. I'm so grateful that that woman shared that with me. She was going from RN to BSN, dropped out because of life circumstances, but then was keeping in contact through alumni events, even though she didn't graduate, and they were incentivizing her coming back. Fantastic. So grateful she shared that setback, because a lot of people wouldn't have shared that they were a college dropout. But she shared that story, and I think it was empowering. So, ladies, I just want to really be a source of encouragement for you and to you, so that you know that this world is a great, big, beautiful place, and there's so much opportunity for you. And, I know that we don't have the advantage that some of the other students do, where we have a father who's willing to work 2 jobs to put us through nursing school and talk to all the right people to set us up for a future. We don't have that, a lot of us. But that doesn't mean that you can't benefit from the conversations that that man is having in the break room, right, around the nurses, as he's advocating for his own child. You can still be privy to those conversations, So ladies, this is Mocha Mommy, wishing you ladies just a great weekend and weekday ahead of new opportunity and new chances to just level up to be the best version of yourself. Thank you so much for listening.